So welcome to everyone who's in the room and for those that are listening to the recording. This is our Employability Week webinar on working in social welfare law for free advice agencies. And I'm delighted to welcome two alumni who have both graduated from the Open University with law degrees. We have Gary, who works for Derbyshire Law Centre, and Dona, who works for Dover and Deal Citizens Advice, and I have missed some places out of that, and she will introduce herself later on. And so this session might be slightly different from certainly from the session I was in earlier today. It isn't a presentation, but I've got some questions to ask Gary and Dona about what it's like working in social welfare law for free legal advice agencies. And then I'm going to try and leave plenty of time at the end for you to ask your questions of both Gary and Dona. So as John Paul said, if you've got questions you want to ask as we go along, please either pop them in the Q&A or pop them in the chat if you can't see the Q&A box, or you can email the email address that John Paul in a moment is going to pop in the chat. So feel free to do that as we're talking, and then we'll kind of turn it over to student questions at the end. So a big thank you for Gary and Dona for coming back to speak to you as OU alumni about their experiences. So Gary, I'll start with you. Do you want to introduce yourself in a bit more detail and explain what your current role is?
Yes, thank you. So my name's Gary Steele. I am a solicitor at Derbyshire Law Centre. I deal with housing law, employment law and discrimination law. I'm also the head of the employment unit, and I supervise a few paralegals, two of whom I hope are on this presentation because they're also students of the Open University doing their law degree.
Fantastic. And what sort of areas of law does the Law Centre cover in addition to the ones that you cover?
So we cover housing, employment, discrimination, immigration, and also debt advice. But we also have a wraparound service where if a client is from one of them units, but they need something specific, then we have funding in order to help them. So, for example, if they're a debt client and they're saying to us, that I haven't got enough money to buy a new fridge, for example, and I'm going to use my rent money, then we have a wraparound service that will go, no, pay your rent, and we can help you try and find the white goods.
That's great. And as a law centre, the clients that you see, do they pay for the advice that they receive, or is it free legal advice?
So it's free legal advice, but it's geographically there's a geographical limit to that. But we also do legal aid work as well. So we have a housing legal aid contract and a discrimination legal aid contract, as well as an immigration legal aid contract. In relation to employment law, we're not funded to do any employment law, so we do some charge for services, but our charge for services are drastically less than what private practice would be. So, for example, our next competitor is charging between £280 to £380 an hour. We're charging £150 an hour. So there's a huge difference because we understand that the community we're in and also the organisation we work for, and we've got a social conscience.
That's great. Thank you, Gary. So that's Gary working for a law centre. We have a different type of legal advice centre for Dona, which is Citizens Advice. So Dona, do you want to introduce yourself and explain about your current role?
Hi, I'm Dona McLachlan. I currently work at Citizens Advice. It's Dover, Deal, Folkestone, Hythe. So we cover two local authorities. Similar to Gary, we're funded strictly by the local authority, and we are ring-fenced for those individuals that live within those authorities. I take care of the employment law, so I help individuals bring employment law cases to the tribunal. I currently am without a practice certificate, but you can participate in the tribunals and you can have rights of audience at a tribunal if your client wishes for you to do that for them. So I will do employment law tribunal and social security law tribunal. We cover, very similar to Gary with the Law Center, we cover debt advice. We have specialist debt advisors. We do not do anything but tier 1 immigration. We do have somebody who comes in from Samfire, another charity, which will help with more complicated legal advice other than very basic immigration advice, because it's very specific. Benefits, which the Law Center does not cover, but it's very similar. When somebody comes in to see me, there's questions to be asked at the beginning, because most of the time you find that your clients, if they have a problem at work where they've been terminated or they're not being paid, obviously they have a problem throughout the rest of their life. So it's just finding funding for them, making sure that they're not getting behind in their rent, and those varying obstacles that those individuals face.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Donna. So, Donna, could you kind of go through for us a typical, if there is a typical day in the life of Donna when she's at work?
Well, I kind of flip between, we've got 4 offices and I visit all 4 offices. I also work as a supervisor, so I have the people coming to me and do the training for employment law when we have new volunteers. And we're a mix of volunteers, which some are, we have 2 judges that volunteer with us. One's a retired solicitor. Her and another individual are magistrates to judges. We're getting a barrister who's doing their training at the moment. And so there are people that are legally involved, but usually my day, sorry, I've kind of gone off piece
No,
there,
it's fine.
is I will get somebody, I'll get referred a client for an employment issue. And it's just trying to understand what their issue is with the employer, making them understand what legal rights they have and what the remedies to that issue may be. So it could be something as simple as writing a letter to say, hey, this redundancy agreement has been calculated incorrectly, and I will provide a link to the Gov website, because maybe they have a bookkeeper and not an accountant, and it's just purely a mistake. Or it could be actually going as far as negotiating for a pre-settlement state agreement, or continuing on to a final hearing date with the tribunal.
No, that's great. Thank you, Donna. How about you, Gary? You're also in a kind of similar area in terms of employment law. Do you have a typical day?
The honest answer is no. I don't think anybody in the social welfare sphere has a typical day, but I can give you, well, it depends what day it is, but if we work on a Monday, I have my housing clients on a Monday. So I have 3 clients. I will be taking instructions from them, making sure that they, very much like Donna, making sure that they understand the law, making sure that I understand their case. So that's in the morning. In the afternoon, it will be catching up on work from Friday. And then when something important comes in, I drop everything, or something urgent comes in, you drop everything and you jump on that. My favourite day of the week is a Tuesday, because I go to court duty. So I go to duty to do the housing duty list at my local county court. So I'll be in court all day. You've asked for a day, but I'm giving you a week. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
And then on a Wednesday is my day to catch up on all of my work. A Thursday I do an outreach, so again I've got clients, and a Friday is my employment and discrimination day, so I'll have clients all day, and then in between all the appointments I have to make sure that I do the work, and I have a group of paralegals that help me, who 2 of them, Molly, who is on the call, is a trainee debt caseworker with us, and she's about to graduate with a law degree. And I don't think my other paralegal, Chloe, is on the call, but she also is about to graduate with a law degree. But no, there's no day that I can say, oh, this Monday is the same as that Monday. It differs. And as I say, if an emergency comes in, then everything is dropped for that emergency. And the emergencies in housing usually come in on a Friday afternoon, just as the local council is about to close, and the client will go, I'm homeless, can you help? So we have that situation as well.
That's great. So I suppose thinking about the type of work you do, it sounds very client focused, lots of contact with individuals, obviously the court appearances that you do. Yeah, is that the same for you, Donna?
It is very much client oriented, and just, I think one of the differences probably working in social welfare law versus private practice is we don't have, Gary and I wouldn't have so many, a caseload that we have to keep. There's no KPIs. The KPIs is best outcome for client versus what it is. And I think for me, probably one of the most difficult aspects is sometimes you can get a little bit wrapped up with the clients because they come in and it's quite a dramatic thing and you just think, oh my gosh, this is a terrible thing that's happened to them through no fault of their own. So all I can say to all the students is, you know, all the reflection that you're asked to do while you're at university and you can't understand why. Gary and I can tell you why now. Is that you're able to just go home and relax and not worry what's going to happen if Susie Smith got turfed out of her house if the bailiffs came on Friday afternoon because her mental health was so bad she couldn't deal with the notice from the court until Friday afternoon at 3:00. So yeah, that's I guess part of it as well.
Yeah. No, that's great. So you've talked there kind of about some of the challenges of working in the social welfare arena, Donna. Are there any other challenges that you find that you find challenging?
Yeah, I'm a full-time employee, so I work 5 days a week. And for me, the most challenging thing is I'm kind of out there on my own. So I'm doing my thing by myself. I do have somebody who mentors me, who works for a local law firm and they're head of the employment law. But it's not like working in a law firm where I can go and say to a senior partner, can you check this, please? What's your opinion? You kind of have to fly by the seat of your pants, which I found really disturbing at first. I felt really insecure. And then this person who mentors me said, look, he had worked at a law clinic originally years ago and said to me, just keep in mind that no matter whatever it is you're doing for these individuals is much better than them trying to do it for themselves. And you're making a huge difference, whether it is something that a senior partner at a major London law firm would do or not, it doesn't make any difference. So, but for me, it's the isolation in a way, and not having other people within the organization. We only deal with that small thing. So before everybody popped on, I was grilling Gary what he did where he's at, because I have a client moving to his area to see if I could refer him. And a lot of times I need human rights solicitors to assist me with certain things. And I find it really difficult to find pro bono representation.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's really helpful. Gary, how about you? What do you find challenging in terms of your current role?
I think that there's never a perfect fix for a client. You're getting best case scenario, you're getting what you can get. So if I use a discrimination client, for example, most of my clients will come to me and say, I want some form of justice. Well, unfortunately in the UK, their justice is compensation. When you sue somebody for discrimination at the county court, there's declarations that can be made and there's recommendations that can be made, but ultimately it is a compensation that they're getting, and sometimes they don't necessarily want that. In addition, it's because discrimination cases are legally aided. If a client comes to me and goes, I want to take a claim, but I don't want compensation, then that's not in scope and I can't help with that. So it's frustrating that we're not funded as well as perhaps we could be by local authorities or even rich law firms. So we can't always get what the client wants. We can't always, there's no perfect solution. We have to basically get what we can get. And I also think a huge challenge for me working as a solicitor in Derbyshire Law Centre is I'm not just a solicitor, I'm a social worker. I'm a mother sometimes. I'm a support worker. I don't just advise on the law, I advise on all sorts of things. And I think it's knowing where the line is, where the professional lawyer line is, and when I'm going over that, because sometimes it's not always clear.
Yeah. So what do you enjoy then, Gary, most about your role? You've spoken a bit about what your challenges are. What do you enjoy?
Well, I'm a litigation solicitor and I like a good row, so I like going to court and I like having a good argument. I like
Yeah.
to I like the litigation process. I like the civil procedure rules. I enjoy that. But on the flip side, I also enjoy the employment work because the employment tribunal rules aren't as strict as the civil procedure rules. But the best thing about my job is that I help people. I'm at the coalface of a crisis and I can help people. And the old adage of why do you want to be a solicitor, and it is because I want to help people, that is truly what I'm doing. I'm at well, both me and Donna, we are at the coalface of society, and we see the worst and the best in people, I would say, and that's what I enjoy.
Yeah. No, I can empathise with that. I was working in a high street practice, so similar-ish to what you were doing. Donna, how about you? What do you enjoy most about your current role?
Well, I have to agree with Gary. I mean, ideally, everyone who's on this call is going for their LLB because they really truly want to help people. And we are the first point of call. Sometimes the clients I see lack capacity to understand even what their issues are. Perhaps they can't read, they can't write, they don't have a chance in the world of getting what it is, justice for themselves, if it wasn't for people like Gary and myself. And I just get a lot of satisfaction from helping people, even if it's something really basic or, going to the employment tribunal. I'm in the process of sitting my SQEs, which has been really great. I've actually been funded because I'm in social welfare. So I was funded by the London Law Society. And my whole idea is that I will then have right of audience for the housing in Canterbury County Court for housing for the clients, because there's going to be a lot of issues in housing, and obviously employment has changed dramatically. But I just really enjoy keeping on top of things, and as far as the law, helping individuals out and knowing that you truly made a difference for someone in a big way. And it can be a life-changing event for them, whether they stay in a home or they don't stay in a home, or they're paid, or their visa's not been revoked, or whatever the issue may be.
So you mentioned just then, Donna, about the fact you've been funded to carry out your solicitor's qualifying examination so that you can qualify as a solicitor. Do you want to explain a little bit more about that? How did you obtain that funding? Is it something that other people can potentially apply for when they're at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be really honest with everybody on this call. I'm no spring chicken, in case you haven't figured that out by looking at me. I received my law degree a week short of turning 60, and decided that my best course of action was just get a job and enjoy doing what I could do, because my probability of getting a training contract, I was the last year that you could either get a training contract or the SQEs were a brand new thing. So I thought, let me just try this out. And then over the course of time, you think, well, it just isn't worth the £15,000 to do your exams, and, what am I going to get out of it? So I live on the seafront and I walk my dogs, and I ran into a gentleman on the seafront because I was desperately looking for someone who could help with human rights, a solicitor, and I had been told this guy with 2 dogs was a solicitor. So that is how desperate I will be for my clients, that I will hunt you down to see what you can provide. And when I started talking to him, he is the head of the London Law Society, and said to me, why don't you apply for this funding? It's called the Solicitors Welfare. It's Solicitors Welfare SQE funding. So SWIFT is what they call it. They do the funding every year for people who've graduated. You have to have your law degree. You have to have been working in social welfare law for at least 2 years. employed full-time. You have to be being paid a pittance. Gary and I we qualify for that, don't we, Gary? And you have to be really passionate about social welfare law. So he nagged me into applying. I did my application the very last day and went through the whole process of interviewing and was one of the 21 recipients in the UK this year. There has been another recipient. Sorry, I'm having a hard time talking this evening. From the Open University, but I do not know who it is. But it's open every year. It will open up again, I think, in August. So it's one of the benefits if you do work in social welfare law. And the whole idea is I have no intention of going into private practice or any other type of practice. I really firmly believe in what I do and the benefit that I bring to my community. So I have no intention of moving from citizens advice. I just hope that I can go to court and argue with the judge on housing issues, and maybe, you know, that will probably be it for me, and continue doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. So that's something worth knowing for those that are potentially interested in going into social welfare law, that there is that opportunity through the fund to apply for your SQE prep costs to be paid. Gary, I know your route into your current role was slightly different, because I think you graduated earlier when it was still the old-fashioned legal practice course and training contract. Do you want to explain how you ended up where you have?
So I got a scholarship to sit my LPC through the Law Society. So it's the Law Society Diversity Access Scheme. So I applied for that and was successful. So I sat my LPC, and I finished my LPC. I did it part-time, so I finished my LPC in 2018 rather. And I was already working at Derbyshire Law Centre as a paralegal at that point. And then Derbyshire Law Centre applied to be a host of the Justice First Fellowship that is run through the Legal Education Foundation. And very much like the fund that Dona got, this is it's a fund to ensure the next generation of legal aid lawyers. So it's not necessarily social welfare, but it's a legal aid. And I think actually the two go hand in hand, social welfare and legal aid. So I applied, my organisation was already a host, so I applied for a training contract and I interviewed and I got it, and then I trained there. I did my training contract there, and then I qualified on the 17th of February 2023. So that was my route in. But I think just on the back of that, I think that my degree and the Open University prepared me for going into social welfare law, and also prepared me for applying for these grants and these scholarships, because it teaches you to be really self-sufficient, and I think that's what you need in social welfare law. So like Donna said, she's on her own. I think social welfare law is very much like that. If you train, there's not many of us. So if you train to be a social welfare lawyer, the likelihood are you're going to be your own manager and your own best friend, because there's not many of us.
Yeah. No, that's great. So you have both been OU students previously, although at different times. So I'll go for you first, Gary. What did you find most useful as a student to prepare you for the role you've currently had? I mean, you've already talked about the fact that as an OU student, you have to be self-motivating, you have to be proactive, you have to take charge of your own learning. So, you know, in your current role, you know, those are really fantastic skills. Was there anything else as an OU student that you think helped prepare you for your current role?
Yeah, I think so. When I did my law degree, it seems to have changed a lot. So I graduated in 2014, and I think the law degree has changed a lot.
It has, yeah.
But I found so I studied on my own, and I found that really helpful to go into the legal profession, not just in social welfare law, but just the legal profession in general. If you can't rely on yourself, then who can you rely on? I also think I liked when I was there. I liked that I got physical books. I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't know if you still get physical books, but I used to love an October when my books used to come in a big box. or a February, which whenever the course started. But I like the books because I could take them anywhere and I could read them. But I think just knowing that I was from an institution where I wasn't the only person who perhaps was going through something, or was, or couldn't go to a bricks and mortar university helped. But as I say, I think the law degree's changed, and there's more alumni now in actual legal practice than when I graduated. But I think studying on your own gives you a platform to grow on, because in the legal profession you have to be organized, there's deadlines, you have to be self-sufficient, and you have to be able to put an argument together and rely on your knowledge.
Yeah. That's great. Donna, how about you? Were there any particular parts of, because I know you did the law degree after Gary, so were there any parts of that you felt particularly helped prepare you for the role that you currently have?
Well, as Gary said, it was really helpful for working on your own online, because obviously I'm on my own a lot.
Yeah.
The other thing was I was actually headhunted. So I had volunteered at Citizens Advice, had left, and had started a job at the local authority, trying to weasel my way into the legal department, and then was called by the CO because they were funded for this employment advisor. You all have the advantage of the course has dramatically changed from when I finished in 2021. I didn't study any employment law at all. It was not part of the course. So there was a lot of negotiation back and forth. I took the job. There was a solicitor who volunteered at our organization who was an employment solicitor. She had agreed to oversee my work. I was with her for maybe 4 weeks. She came in one day a week. She handed me 3 cases. I'm thinking, oh, great. She's going to oversee this. They were employment tribunal cases, and proceeded to quit the following Monday. So I sat there for the next month with Tully's, which was my preferred. Like Gary, I love a good book. And just read Tully's from beginning to end, thinking, oh my God, you have to support these people through an employment tribunal, and you don't even know what's what. So it does set you up very well for being self-sufficient, for saying, okay, well, I can't get into this online platform, or if I can't find this, where can I find it? And it has been a big help. It was also a very big help getting the fund that I've just received, because the entire course is online. So the fact that I'd already done a degree online and was a self-starter had proved myself. And I find it really easy to navigate around on their website or any other website. Like, I'm sure Gary found the same thing. Doing legal research online is a piece of cake, because you've had to do so much. That was your institution when you're learning at the OU. So I found it really helpful.
That's great, thank you. So I've got one more question for you both. So just a reminder for those that are here, I know we've had a few questions popped into the Q&A, but if you do want to ask any questions for Gary and for Donna, please do pop them in the Q&A or put them in the chat. So my final question then, Donna, I'll come to you first, is what top tips would you give a current OU student, maybe the ones that are here today, who wanted to go into social welfare law or work in a similar kind of role to yours? Have you got any top tips you would give them?
Absolutely. I think you would find that every Citizens Advice around the country would be absolutely delighted to have a law student who came in and volunteered their time. And it is possible to do. I know I did it until I took a full-time job, but it is possible to spend a little bit of time there, because it gives you a broad access to loads of different types of law and issues. So you can kind of figure out what might be attractive to you. And that would be it, just to volunteer somewhere and see if you're a good fit for them.
Yeah. And of course, volunteering as well, with a law centre or with Citizens Advice also gives you a really good indication as to whether it actually is for you, that type of law or not. I remember when I qualified, I did a training contract with a high street firm because I wanted client contact, and I was convinced I wanted to work in criminal law. And I think I lasted 2 months into my criminal law 6 months seat and realised it was absolutely not for me, criminal law. So I think it's really good to try before you buy and to make sure it is for you. But anyway, Gary, what about you? What top tips would you give our students who are looking to work in social welfare?
I completely agree. I think volunteering. Yeah, I completely concur with Donna. So, where the Citizens Advice and law centres are charities, so we haven't got loads and loads of money to throw about. And if you can volunteer your time, then you can learn a lot. And exactly like you said, try before you buy. And I always tell students to get as much experience in as many areas of law as you can, because like you, Liz, I wanted to be a criminal lawyer, and then I thought absolutely not, because they're going to get me up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to a police station to represent somebody who's drunk, and I just don't want to do that. I quite like to, sit behind my desk and get a good night's sleep. So yeah, try before you buy. I did some family law work, and that absolutely wasn't for me either. But yeah, volunteer, try and do as much experience as you can. I also think find out when your court duty day is at your local county court, and go and ask to shadow the duty solicitor. Or find out who the duty solicitor is, because it differs from different areas. In fact, I think if you Google if you Google duty solicitors, the legal aid agency have got a list of every duty solicitor in the country, so you can have a look at that. So you can volunteer as much or as little as you want, but if you are going to volunteer a little, I'd be sort of saying go and see what it's like at court, because it's an experience.
No, that's great, thank you. So following on from that theme, there's a question in the chat. Jess says, where's the best places to look for volunteering? So is it with the law centres and Citizen Advice, or are there other places that's also worth thinking about?
Gary, go ahead.
I think Citizens Advice, from my recollection, and I may be completely wrong, Donna, but last time I was looking at Citizens Advice, you do gateway assessor courses where you can go in and be an assessor. But I'm not going to speak on Citizens Advice because I don't know. With law centres, we are part of the law centre network, but we're also like franchisers. So we're a little bit like McDonald's. So we're our own organisation, but we're affiliated with the Law Society, with the legal law centre networks. So it would be contacting them. It would be contacting them and doing the footwork that perhaps we all had to do. Sending CVs, emailing, ringing. My best advice is don't take no for an answer. And be tenacious about it, and almost be as dogged as you can, to the point where they're threatening to get an injunction against you, because because the sector is so busy. The person who's probably going to be organising the work experience is also the person who's probably managing the volunteers, managing the reception, managing they're really busy. So don't be offended if you don't get a response. Keep emailing, and I mean, I saw something on LinkedIn the other day, and it said somebody who wanted a training contract sent over 60 CVs in London, and to make sure they got the CVs, she went in with a box of donuts to each office. Now, I'm not saying bribery is the key, but if you've got a box of donuts, come to Derbyshire Law Centre.
Thank you, Gary. Donna, have you got anything to add to that?
I do. I can only speak for my organization, and I always say we're like Subway sandwiches, Gary, when people ask that. Again, we're licensed, we're affiliated with Citizens Advice National. We follow their protocol and their training. Citizens Advice has an extensive training program prior to being allowed to advise on any particular issues. When I did a Open University, there was a law clinic the first place we were told to go was the Citizens Advice website. It was for benefits in a particularly impoverished area of the UK. So it is not a choice of just going in and saying, oh, well, I'm going to sit there for a day or two. If you want to get involved, you can get involved in a number of ways. I do get master's degree students who will be my sort of aid for me, who will shadow me, and then I make sure that they have completed. Usually they can bust through the training. I'm going to be perfectly brutally honest here, within a week, because you guys all know the basics. It's just going to be how we record cases, and there are some specific things, but when it comes to the basic law, you'll pretty much have a really good idea of what is needed. And there's loads of advice and loads of structure around that. And it depends on your area, Citizens Advice, what they offer, what they're willing to do. We're a larger one because we're open 5 days a week. We cover such a large area. You'll find that some of the smaller areas don't have the funding for 5 days a week. They don't have the funding for debt training. They don't have the funding for particular things. So it's just going to depend upon your area. But if you say that you want to do a week of just shadowing somebody to see what it's like, or you need work experience for 9 months because you're finishing your master's degree, or whatever the case may be, again, just keep nagging to get in there.
Yeah. And as Shane, as I think you've put in the chat, some Citizens Advice will require you to make a commitment of a certain amount of time if they're going to train you. I think it will very much depend upon the office that you've gone to. But, you know, be aware that there is a cost to these organisations for training you and for supervising you. So you do need to think about what you're prepared to kind of offer as well, particularly if it involves training. John Paul's popped in the chat some pages from the Open Justice website, which has some information about where to volunteer. And the other one I would add, it's worth looking at if you're interested in social welfare law, is to look at LawWorks. So LawWorks is a pro bono legal charity, and they have opportunities available through them for students to volunteer as well. So it's worth seeing what they've got available. Turning to the Q&A, we've got a few questions in there. So I'll start with the oldest ones. So Donna, Anik says, what skills are most important when working with vulnerable clients, and how can law students start developing those skills early on?
I think the most important skills are really being able to listen to people and listen well. And one of the habits I have is, which I think is a really great habit, is you have to remember that sometimes that we're dealing with individuals whose capacity to express themselves is limited and they're very emotive. So I will sometimes stop them and say, can we just stop for a minute? Can I please repeat back to you what I think I just heard you say? And if I am incorrect, can you please clarify, so that you're really upfront, you're making them feel as if they're heard when you are hearing them, and you're totally trying, I guess you're empathizing and trying to understand their position. You also have to be totally without judgment, which sometimes we're all innately have. We're judgy. That's just the way we are. And it's understanding that you may be predisposed to judge on certain instances because something happened to you in your past. And if once you understand that, to realize that you cannot do that at all, that you have to be totally impartial to that individual.
Yeah, no, that's great. And there are some, I'll find the link in a moment to pop in the chat, but there are also some free resources available through OpenLearn, through the OU on active listening, which is what Donna was just talking about, that I'll pop in the chat for people to look at as well. Gary, how about you? What skills do you think is important when working with the clients that you work with, and how can law students acquire those skills?
I completely agree with Donna. Listening is the big one. I mean, you can hear what you want to hear, but you need to make sure you hear what the client's telling you. I think one for me might be a little bit out there, but I think you need to have a real sense of humor. I think you need to try and find the funny in everything, otherwise it will send you a little bit mad.
Yeah.
I don't mean sitting and laughing at the client, but I mean, you know, you need to, there's something called gallows humor. And I think I have it a lot. So when I see a client and it's a really difficult client, I will go back to my colleagues and I'll explain, and I'll try and find a funny anecdote, or I'll try and say it in a funny way. Just because otherwise I think you would, if you're serious all the time, you'll just crack and you'll just burn. I think also being able to talk to anybody and everybody. If you are shy and reserved, with respect, social welfare law isn't for you, because you are going to be eaten alive. I think that you need to be able to talk to people. And as for how to develop these early on, go to the library and have a chat with an old lady. Go and sit in a coffee shop and have a chat with somebody. Just speak, I find, and listen to what they're telling you. Because I think if you can do that with a stranger, I think you'll be fine with a client.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I'm just popping the link in for some resources on active listening into the chat for people as well. So Gary, I think linked to what you were just talking about in terms of managing the kind of the emotional side aspects of working in the free advice sector, you know, when you've seen those difficult cases or those difficult clients, you've talked about using gallow humours, and I certainly recognise that from when I was in practice. Is there any other advice you can give as to how you handle those aspects of working in social welfare law?
I think you have to be able to talk to somebody. So I have a few people who I can go and talk to about stuff. So if I'm really struggling with something, I know that there's one person I can go to, have a moan, and then move on. But I also think you need to, it depends what area of law you're in, but if I choose housing, most of my clients are in a situation because they didn't pay the rent. And it may be because they can't afford to pay the rent because of whatever issue, but they didn't pay the rent. And what you need to understand is that to some extent, they've put themselves in a position, even though it wasn't their fault, they're still there. And it's not my fault that they're there, and I will always help them, but they also need to take a little bit of, I don't want to say accountability, but they also need to be part of the solution rather than the problem. And I'm very, very frank with my clients. And I find building a relationship with them is one of the best ways. And it goes back to the other skills. When you build a relationship with somebody, they're more likely going to tell you things. And if you're completely non-judgmental, you're going to get more out of them because they're not going to be scared to tell you things. But I think how I deal with the emotional side of things is I will find the funny in things. I'll eat my body weight when I get home. And you have to put that in a box for when you go home, otherwise it will just consume you. I'm not saying that I don't think about my clients when I'm at home, because I do, but I know that my working day is 9:30 till 4:30, and there's nothing I can do outside of those hours for my clients. So that's how I deal with it. But you need someone to talk to, and you need to have a release, and whether that is eating your body weight in chocolate every night, or going to the gym and punching a punch bag, there needs to be a release.
Yeah. Donna, was there anything you'd add to that?
I 100% agree with Gary. Finding humor in some of the situations. And this may be out there, but I'm just going to tell you about I'm interviewing somebody who had an employment issue, and they were being discriminated against. And part of it was religious discrimination, but there was also other things that were very, very onerous. But with the religious, she said, and then my colleague said to me, well, your Virgin Mary, she was no virgin, she was a slut. And I had to actually cover my mouth, because just at that moment in time, because there was other very bad implications in the whole employment situation. And it just really hit me as funny. And I think part of it was hearing the other sex discrimination issues, which were very onerous. that at the time, that was my way of just having, I mean, she didn't know I was smiling behind my hand, like, oh my God, in a way, this is really funny. But this is the case. And then when I do get home, I think I just had an incident not very long ago as well with a friend who works for the BBC as a reporter, said to me, you know, you're really wound up, and I think that you need to really think about leaving your work. This was on a Friday night and we were out, and I thought, oh my God, he's so right. Like, I can't do anything to help this person over the weekend, as Gary said. I have done the very best I could possibly do. And I had to realize that sometimes there are holes in the law, and there are things that is just not possible for us to address. Even if I was the top solicitor or barrister or whatever, there are breaches and there are gaps in the law that it is impossible for you to solve this problem for that person. And it's understanding that, acknowledging it, and say, you know what, I didn't create this problem, as Gary said. I've done the very best I can, and I have to let it go because I need to be okay for the next person on Monday morning.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So we've got quite a few questions left. So in lieu of time, what I might do is ask the questions to one of you. But if the other one wants to jump in with anything, then please do. I'll start, Gary, with you. Delia says, are there any short courses or certifications that would benefit someone seeking work in social welfare law?
The short answer, I think, is no, because
Yeah.
it's specific areas of law. I think you could, I think you can do as many courses as you want to do, but ultimately, in my opinion, you're either made for social welfare law or you're not. It's very, very niche. You're either going to handle it or you're not, and you need to. But I would also say you need to be interested in the areas of law as well. So if you want to sit behind a desk and review contracts all day or sell houses and you don't want client focus, then don't go into social welfare law. If you're not willing to drop everything at 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon because someone's walked in as homeless, then don't go into social welfare law. You're literally seeing people at crisis point. But no, I don't think there's any short courses or qualifications, apart from your law degree, that actually deal with social welfare law. I think it's just doing it, if that makes sense. I think you just have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what I would add there is to perhaps think a little bit more widely. So if you're struggling to get work experience in a law centre or in a citizen's advice, you know, are there other charities that would offer you the opportunity to have contact with people who are perhaps in crisis or who are vulnerable, that you can then use that to demonstrate your ability to communicate and have be able to work with those clients. So don't forget the value that's in the non-legal volunteering that you might be able to do if you're struggling to get that other type of work. Annick, Donna, I'm going to bring this one to you. Annick says, can volunteering with organisations like Citizens Advice count towards qualifying work experience? And what should students be mindful of when trying to use it in that way?
Working at Citizens Advice totally is on the SRA as qualifying work experience. You must be employed full-time and you must be paid for that employment. So the volunteering aspect is not part of the qualification. You do have to go for paid employment. Most of the people that everybody, now that I think about it, that I work with at Citizens Advice who's a paid employee started as a volunteer. And as Liz said, don't forget about organizations like Shelter, which helps homeless. There's FRU. So once you've got your law degree, Free Representation Unit, they provide representation for people who are in the employment tribunal, and they are also Social Security tribunals. Rights of Women, you may be able to volunteer for them. Therefore, specifically for women. And I'm sure there's loads of other things that I'm not even thinking of at the moment.
Yep. No, that's great. Thank you. Another question completely different, Gary, for you. Do you remote work or do you work from the office?
I work from the office. During COVID, it was remote working, but I work from the office. I think I'd struggle to do my job if I'm honest because it's so client focused. Um, so yeah, I think I work 100% from the office.
Yeah. Donna, how about you? Out of interest, are you office based?
Technically, I'm 4 days a week in varying offices, and Friday is supposed to be home working, which I do as admin and callbacks because there is a lot of administration with filings and different things, as Gary has already stated, and it's kind of like juggling balls. If I need to meet a client that I have already know and I have already met, I will walk to the local office in my town and meet them there because I'm the only person there. So it's lone working, which is frowned upon by my organization. But if I already know them, I will meet clients occasionally on a Friday.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you. Gary, back to you. A question here. It says, for someone considering a career that combines advocacy with making a social impact, would you recommend starting in social welfare law?
Yes, I would. So the reason I say that is because unlike unlike private practice, most of our clients are going to be legally aided, and the likelihood of us being able to pay for a barrister to go and do our advocacy are very slim unless we can get them on a substantial certificate. So I do a lot of my own advocacy. So that's in the employment tribunal and it's also in the county court. So yeah, I do. I think that social welfare law, you are, and I use this word and I don't really like it, but you are a lawyer rather than just a solicitor. And what I mean is you're like a bit like an American lawyer. You are going to do everything, whereas, you know, we have a two-tier system. But in social welfare law, you are going to do your own advocacy. Absolutely, you are. Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of linked to that then, if people were interested in kind of finding out a little bit more about what it's like being in court or a tribunal or advocacy, are people able to go and observe in employment tribunals or in court? Is there any advice you could offer to people to gain a bit more experience?
Yeah, you can go to court at any point, anytime you want, provided they're not in chambers. All courts are publicly, you know, anybody can go. In the employment tribunal, a lot of it is done online. However, you can still, I think, I've never had this, but you can still view online. You just have to contact the local employment tribunal, who will probably send you a link, I suppose. But there's some hearings that aren't private. So a lot of in the employment tribunal, a lot of the preliminary hearings, so case management hearings, for example, are not public, I don't think.
Yeah.
Or I've never had any public ones. I don't know about you, Donna. I've never had any. But in the county court and in the magistrates court, yeah, you can just rock up one day and go and sit in court. I'd always I wouldn't ever go and see a trial because you never know how that's going to go. I would be going to see a court list. And what I mean by a court list is in the county court, there'll be a housing day, there will be a return of goods day, and in the magistrates court there'll be like a road traffic day. And so, you know, just go and get used to your court. Also, a bit of a tip I would give is speak to all of the ushers. So the best advice I was given when I was training was the court usher needs to be your best friend because they can either make or break your day. So go and make friends with the court usher and speak to them because they'll tell you what the best cases are and what the juicy cases are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that. The best source of advice is your court usher for telling you which is the best to go to. And if you were interested in tribunal proceedings, Jess, I've seen your question. Again, phone up your local employment tribunal office and ask them if there's any hearings that you would be able to attend as an observer to understand what's likely to happen. I think we've probably just got time for one more question for both of you. I've been saving this one for you. Donna, I'll come to you first. So Emily says, with access to justice hard to come by for many, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you say would make the system either better or fairer in the UK? What would be your top of your wish list?
Well, I was going to impart this little gem before I left either way. And I'm begging each and every one of you on this call that when you get your practice certificates or you get called to the bar, that you dedicate at least 5 days a year or take one case from beginning to end in whatever type of law it is that you work in, so that you, as a pro bono case, to give back, because it is a really, really terrible state of affairs that we're in right now with, I mean, I didn't even know there were any law centers left. Sorry, Gary. There is nothing in my area, absolutely nothing. And even in Frew, for Kent, one of the biggest counties in the UK, there is not one single advocate for the Social Security or Employment Tribunal. Is just think about how all of you who are sitting here, how fortunate you are to have the capacity to be able to understand the law, to do a law degree and pass your law degree, and know what your rights are, and that we have a duty as a civilized society to assist the bottom 10% of society or more who do not have the capacity to understand or to make good decisions, informed decisions. And I personally feel that it is our duty as a civilized society and as somebody who does have the capacity to assist those who do not.
Thank you, Donna.
Sorry
Gary,
for that.
no, it's fine. How about you? If there was one thing you could do that would make the just access to justice and the justice system fairer, what would you be wanting?
I would like more access to legal aid. So
Mm.
currently, if you have more than £733 disposable income per month after you take off rent, an amount for children, an amount for a partner, and £45 for employment, that's all you're allowed to take off, £45. If you have a pound more than £733, you are not getting legal aid. So, for example, I won't be able to get legal aid. There's a lot of people who won't be able to get legal aid unless they're on benefits. I think that needs to expand. I think the limit needs to increase because that will give access to justice. And when we think about access to justice, we think, or I assume, that we're looking at things like in the criminal courts and in the family courts. But actually, let's not forget that, you know, you may, for example, own your house and you may have a neighbour dispute, and you have got no insurance, but you're a pound over that limit, you're not getting you're not getting any representation for that boundary dispute. Or, I mean, one thing that really annoys me in family law is if you cannot show domestic violence, you're not getting any legal aid. So I think the legal aid system needs to change. I would like the amount, the threshold for what you can earn to go up. But I'd also, quite selfishly, like the rates to go up for legal aid because they haven't gone up since 1996. So I'm being paid, for example, let's test you. How much do you think the fixed fee for a possession case is? So when I take a client on, I'm paid a fixed fee. How much do you think that is?
Is that a fixed fee from start to end of the proceedings?
Yes.
Okay, give some suggestions in the chat, folks. What do you think in total the solicitor gets for interviewing the client, doing all the court papers, witness hearings, directions hearings, final hearing?
Sorry, I've just seen annex and I'm laughing. I'm really laughing.
Yeah. Oh, it's all right. Jennifer's got 4,000. So it ranges between £50 an hour through to about 4,000. What is it,
Okay.
Gary?
The fixed fee is £223.
Oh.
So if I go 3 times over £223, then I can claim everything. But if I'm 2 times over, all I'm getting is £223. So those rates haven't increased. They haven't gone up. I mean, a friend of mine charges £223 an hour. That's all I'm getting for my work on a file. And if you look at how much work that that I do, it's less than minimum wage. So I'd quite like I'd just like a little increase. I'd just like it so that in the winter I could put my heating on. That's all I'd like.
Yeah, but seriously, that does have a major impact, because I think people were talking earlier about advice deserts. So there's whole areas of the country where there aren't law clinics anymore. There aren't legal aid solicitors, because so many solicitors in private practice are exiting out of legal aid work because it's just not profitable anymore for them. And so you end up with large areas of the country that has no access to this. Even where legal aid is available, there still is no access to legal aid solicitors. So it's a major issue. Anyway, I've realised I should have asked that question for earlier, because we've run over. So thank you for staying, everybody. I want to give a big thank you to Gary and to Donna for coming and sharing their experiences. I think it's really motivational to see OU alumni who've ended up in this type of work, and particularly social welfare law, which kind of aligns so much with the mission of the Open University in terms of achieving social justice for everyone. So I want to say thank you to you both for all of the work and the sacrifices that you've made working in this area of law, instead of earning a lot of money working in commercial law elsewhere. And thank you for sharing your experiences with our students. So I hope you've enjoyed it, students, and that you have a good evening. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.